Welcome back. So in the previous video, we learned how to fill out or create this form and make it display on the front end with a shortcode. Now we want this form to be filled and for it to connect to the WordPress backend so that it can add an entry into our custom post type. So to do that, obviously, if we hit submit now, like before, it's just going to do the query parameter. We don't want it to do that. Let's go into our code and take control of this form with AJAX, specifically using jQuery for this tutorial because jQuery is closely knit with WordPress. You can use any sort of any framework or any JavaScript library you want. You could use Vue, you could probably use React, I'm sure, or vanilla JavaScript, but we'll just use jQuery to keep things relatively straightforward. So let's go back to our code. And the first thing we want to do is we want to include the jQuery script. But we're not going to include it. We could easily just include it under the form here, but we don't want to do that because we want to keep everything separate. So let's add a new method or add a new action. So we'll do add action and we'll do WP_footer. And what that does is it adds code to the footer of the website. We'll then create a callback, this, which refers to this class. And then we'll just create a method called load scripts. Now we're not going to use the JavaScript file here because we need to include some dynamic things. I'll get to that later. I'll just comment this and we'll make it load JavaScript. And we'll go down and we'll actually create that method. And we want to do it similar to how we did with this one, so we can do the script inline. So I'll copy that, paste it, and we'll call it load scripts. So if everything works fine, we could open up our script tag. And inside there, we could do alert, it works. And if I refresh, oops, you should see it works comes up. And if we go to the page source, to the footer, you should see our script come up in the footer there. Good, so that's exactly what we want it to do. Now what we want to do is we want to target the specific form. So the form ID is simple contact form underscore form. And we want to do a jQuery, open up the jQuery, $, target that ID, and then .submit. Function, and inside there we want to pass the submit event and we want to work within this function here. Now off camera I actually added type submit there, so whether that does anything or not, it may. You might want to just add type submit there to the form for the button. So now that when this submit form is clicked, let's see if it works. We'll refresh and we'll just type in some random stuff. These aren't required, so I can hit send message, but it still doesn't work. If we go to the inspector and we go to console, you'll see $ is not a function. Now, typically with jQuery, we need to make sure that we don't use the $ and we do jQuery like that. We'll go back and refresh it and we'll save it and you'll see it works, but it also goes to that next page, which we want to stop as well. But if you prefer to use the $, you could wrap the jQuery in a function. So we could revert it back to a $, and then we could open it up a new function like this, pass in the $, and then at the end, we want to open up some more brackets and do jQuery. And then it basically knows that we want to use the $ as jQuery. I'll just make it neat. Cool. So let's go and see if this works. Cool, that works, but it still points us to another page. So in order to stop that, we need to override the functionality of the standard functionality of the browser by using we'll put it within this function, actually, the click function, event.prevent default. And this function will just make sure it stops doing whatever it's doing and does only what we need it to do. So there you go. And it's not going to forward to another page now. Okay, so now that we've done that, we want to grab all of the fields out of this form so we can send them in a structured format to the back end of WordPress. And we've already given each input a name, so they should come through in organized format. But instead of manually grabbing all these and putting them in some sort of variable, what we can do, I'm going to remove this alert by the way, we can serialize them. So we can create a new variable, var form, I'm going to call it, equals this, which refers to this form or this page, and then dot serialize. Sorry, it does not refer to the page. It refers to the form, which is this inside this ID. Serialize. And let's console log the form to see what it does. So refresh it, send message, and I'll just look at the console. You'll see that it's just basically put it in a query parameter, which is good. And now what we want to do is, since we've got all the data serialized, we want to send that via AJAX to the backend. So let's open up the AJAX function, $AJAX, and inside there we're going to put an object. The method is going to be post. So we're going to be posting the data to the WordPress backend, and we need to put the URL of where it's going to be posting. So WordPress allows us to get, it has a function that gives us a bit of a shortcut to finding out that URL. So we'll put the two inverted commas, we'll do PHP echo get rest URL, and that accepts two arguments, and I am not 100% sure what the first argument is, so I will just find that out. Let's have a look here. Let's just do it up here. We'll do it up here. And it doesn't look like WordPress snippets is actually telling me what it is. So I'll just quickly refer to the website. The first argument is for blog ID, and it's recommended to be null. So I'll just make it null. And then the second argument is to the endpoint. So with WordPress REST API, typically you will have different endpoints for creating posts. So they're default endpoints with WordPress, but we want to create a custom endpoint to receive the data and manipulate it how we want. So at this point in time, I'm just not going to put anything here because we are going to be creating our own endpoint, which I'll do after I set up this script. So now that we have that, we also want to pass through some headers. And what headers are a way for you to just transfer some extra data along with the form. And in this case, we're going to be using it to pass through something called a nonce. In WordPress, a nonce stands for number used once, and it's basically a way to stop people from being able to post to your form from other websites or from other programs like Postman. So it kind of stops CSRF forgery. Now, a nonce will ensure that anyone that posts on or sends a form will actually be posting it from your website and nowhere else. So we want in our headers to send through something called x-wp-nonce. And we then want to attach the nonce or the number that WordPress generates with this particular post. Now to do that, to grab the nonce, which is loaded with every session that someone has on the website, we need to run some PHP. So let's go at the top of the script here and do var, and we'll just call it nonce. You can call it whatever you want. And then we're going to use some PHP to grab that number. So PHP echo, and we'll use a function called wp_create_nonce. And we can call it whatever we want, but we're going to call it WP rest. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a number which we can use in this variable, and then we can attach to the variable here, or to the XWP nonce, to the headers, and it's going to be passed along with the request, which we can then verify on the back end of WordPress. It's a lot to take in, I know, but hopefully you can understand that. So with that nonce, we don't need to do anything else but pass in the data. So the data will be this specific data here. So I'll remove that console log, and it will just be form. So that's it. We've set up the AJAX request, and now all we need to do is create this REST URL so that we can grab that data. To create a REST API endpoint for our form to make an AJAX request to, we need to create a new hook in our construct method of our class. So this is going to hook into the specific hook that WordPress uses to create endpoints, and we'll be able to customize it so we can control the data that comes from the form. So I'll just do a comment, register REST API. We'll do another action, add action, and we'll hook into REST underscore API underscore init. And we'll create a callback, of course, which will be an empty array with this as the first argument. And then we'll just call it register REST API as the method. Go down to the bottom of our function and let's create that method, public function, register REST API. In this method, we are going to run a function inside of there, which is a WordPress specific function that will allow us to register the route so it knows to receive data from that specific route or that URL. So that will be register REST route. And I'll use WordPress snippets so it can tell us the arguments we need. First thing is a namespace. So if we look at a sample address, we'll have test.com/wp-json, which is the standard. And then that's our namespace. And the reason why I did a V1 is so in case you want to create a second endpoint in future, and you can have V1 and V2 running at the same time so you don't affect anyone who could potentially be using that endpoint if you opened it up to the public. And then the third would be the route, or in my case, I'm just going to be descriptive and put that this is for sending email, just so we know what that route is for. Cool. So the namespace is going to be simple-contact-form and /v1. The route is going to be send-email. And then we have the arguments and we have override. We'll just get rid of override. And then in arguments, that's an array. So we'll open up a blank array. And inside the arguments, what you need to do is you need to tell the route what type of route it is. And in this case, it's going to be a post route. We don't want someone making a GET request to it or a patch or put request to it. They need to make a post request. So it'll be methods equals post. And then we want to create a callback, and the callback will be the function that handles the data that gets posted by the form. So let's do callback, open up the array, this, and then let's call it handle contact form. Now that we've created this route, we can create this callback, and the callback will be where the data from the form gets passed to. So this is it comes with a variable straight away. So we can just call that data. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm calling it data. And this is where we handle the data that gets posted. So if I do echo, hello, this endpoint is working. And then we go back up to our script and we change where this points to. So the get REST URL will automatically populate this part of the link or the URL. We need to populate that. So let's copy that and paste it into there. You'll notice that it's just a joining of this and this. Let's save that. And off camera, I actually fixed this. So it was like this before. We need to make sure we have that as a colon, otherwise you will get JavaScript error. So let's go back, hit refresh. And if I'm doing it right, when we hit send message, we're going to get a response saying, what was the message? Hello, this endpoint is working. Okay, so good. Let's hit send message. Let's go to console. All right, we'll go to network, sorry. And you should see that that's working. So we can just keep pressing send message. I've sent it about 10 times now. And you'll see it just keeps responding back. Cool. So now that we've got the ability to post to the endpoint, we need to obviously protect this endpoint to make sure that the information being sent is from our website, which is where that nonce comes in. And then once the nonce passes, we can then go ahead and create the data in our custom post type. So as mentioned before, when the contact form is submitted, it gets submitted to this callback, and this is the data that gets sent from the form. So let's decode that data. The first two things we need to get from that data is we need to get the headers. So we'll create a new variable called headers, and then we'll do data get headers. So we're grabbing the headers from that data that gets sent from the form, and then we'll create another variable called params, data get params. These are two functions in WordPress that allow us to grab that data from the objects that gets posted. The first thing we want to do is we want to verify the nonce. So we want to make sure that the nonce that gets sent through is a valid nonce. So if we just go and echo JSON encode the headers and go here, hit send message, we should be able to see that something says cookie nonce is invalid. Now that should not be happening. So let me just refresh that and let's try that again. Okay, great. So it's come through with the JSON encoded headers that get sent with this form. And you'll see that we have quite a few options here, but we're looking for the WP nonce. And that is the nonce there. So we need to grab this from the headers so we can verify it. Let's go back here. And it looks like it's going to be headers. And then it's an array. So that will be x underscore WP underscore nonce. And then 0 because it is 0. So it's an array as well. Okay, so we can call that nonce equals, there we go. And then now that we're able to grab that nonce, we want to verify whether it is actually valid or not. So we could do if WP verify nonce, and then obviously put the nonce variable into there. And there's one last thing we want to put in there, which is the name of the nonce, which we call WP underscore rest. Let's put WP underscore rest there. And let's see if it works. So we'll echo, and this nonce is correct. We'll save that, clear that, and now let's refresh the page, type in some information into our form, hit send message, and there we go. This nonce is correct. But what if the nonce is incorrect? Let's try that. Let's just change the nonce to be whatever. We'll refresh, and let's try this. This nonce is not correct. Okay, so what would we do if it's not correct? Let's take that back. Actually, I'll revert that. What we want to do is we want to return the user or the application back so we can maybe create an error on the front end of the form. So in this case, we could do return new WP rest response. So it's just a new response. Message not sent. That's the message we're going to send back with a 422 error code, which is basically which will be picked up by your AJAX response as an error. So let's save that, refresh, clear our console and just type some more info there and hit send message. And you'll see message not sent comes up, and it also comes up unprocessable entity. So that allows you to protect with the nonce. So that verification is now done. So now this is the easy part. We want to add our data into our custom post type. Adding the data into our custom post type is going to happen in two ways. The first way is we're going to create the entry or a post in our custom post type, and then we're going to attribute meta keys into there. So basically, we're going to be using it very similar to how custom fields work. So the first thing we want to do, because our nonce has passed, we want to create a post, and we'll do a variable called post ID, because it's going to return the post ID when we create this post. WP underscore insert underscore post, add an array into there. And inside this array, we want to specify the post type. And in this case, the post type, if we refer back to our custom post type that we created, the name of our custom post type is called simple contact form. So let's copy that and paste that there. The second option will be the title of the post. So post title, and let's just call it contact inquiry. At this stage, we'll just make it contact inquiry. And then the third one will be the status. So we'll just make that published. Cool. All right. So let's try that out. Let's go and fill out this form. We'll hit send message. You'll see that it says, actually it says message not sent. So why is that? Oh, okay. I didn't put the nonce back to what it should be. So headers, I believe it's XWP nonce, and then 0. I'm pretty sure that is. Actually, let me just verify that. We'll echo the headers again. X underscore WP underscore nonce. Beautiful. All right, so that's it. So now when we submit, this information should be going into the backend. There was no response there, which is a good sign. So let's go back. Let's go to our contact form. There we go. We have 2 inquiries, but they have absolutely nothing in it. So obviously we're going to be putting the data in there through custom meta fields. I'll just delete them. So if you fill out the form and it's successful, then you want to respond with a success message, right? So let's just do that. If post ID, return new WP rest, I keep typing reset, I don't know why, response, thank you for your email, and we'll just do 200. So it's going to create a post, and if it does create a post, it's going to respond with thank you for your email, which we'll then use later down the track to display it on our form. Okay, so I'll just fill out some details. And let's have a look at the console here. Oops, doesn't seem to be doing anything. Maybe it's because I'm looking at the wrong console. Yeah, cool. I've hit it about 3 times now, so 3 contact inquiries should be in there. Okay, nothing is in there. Oh, yes, it is. I just had to refresh the page. So I've got 3 contact inquiries. You go into there, it's just got the title contact inquiry. Nothing else is there. Cool. All right, so let's delete all that. Beautiful. So what we've learned in this video is we've learned how to create a REST API endpoint and how to post data into it and to verify the nonce, so then we can start putting the data into our database. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to handle and save the custom fields or the custom metadata. So for example, all of this data, name, email, phone, type your message, they're all going to be custom metadata associated with a custom post type, and we're going to display it in its own meta box. So I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you've learned something from this video. Cheers.